Lesson 67 is about radical denominators. Remember, we've talked about that we cannot have radicals in the denominator. It just doesn't look good. So what we're going to do is we're going to rationalize. And to rationalize this denominator, since it's a binomial, we have to multiply by the conjugate. If I have an addition of two numbers, the conjugate is changing the sign of one of them. Why? Because that is the multiplication that gives us a difference of squares, so we can simplify that as the square of the first one minus the square of the second one. And that's going to help us simplify here. So let's multiply. In this case, the conjugate is going to be 4 plus the square root of 3 because we're changing the sign of the 4. And when I multiply that, on the top is 4 plus the square root of 3. And then on the bottom, we're going to put the first one square. The first one is always going to be the one that is positive in both sides. So square root of 3 square minus the second one square. And I have to simplify that so the top stays the same. And then on the bottom, I have the square root of 3 square, which is just 3, minus 4 square, which is 16. And to simplify that, we have to keep the same on the top and then subtract on the bottom, which would be negative 13. Now remember, we do not leave a negative in the denominator, so the answer is going to be minus 4 minus square root of 3 over 13. And that's our answer. Again, we're using the conjugate to multiply and then get the difference of squares. And notice in that way, we don't have a square root or a radical in the denominator anymore. Let's look at this other example. It's very similar. We have to multiply by the conjugate, which is again changing the sign of one of them. And I'll change the second one. So that is easy to do then the multiplication and find the answer. When I multiply, the top is 3 times 2 is 6 square root of 3. And 3 times negative square root of 2 is 3 square root of 2. And then in the bottom, we're going to have the first one. Notice how I use parentheses. To the second power minus the second one to the second power. The reason I use parentheses here is to include also these two in the parentheses. Then the top doesn't change. We leave it exactly the same. And we simplify the bottom, which is going to be 2 squares 4 times 3 is 12. You can put in the calculator, minus 2. And again, if I simplify this, that's going to be 6 square root of 3 minus 3 square root of 2 over 10. And that's it. Very simple lesson. Just multiply by the conjugate. The top, you just do the distributive property. And in the bottom, you use the difference of squares product. So go do some practice. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll see you in the next lesson.